The sky over Louisville was gray and heavy with mist when Emily Carter's car rolled up the cracked asphalt road leading to the old Waverly Hills Sanatorium. The building loomed ahead, an enormous Gothic structure with broken windows like hollow eyes staring down at her. Vines crept up its sides, and the air smelled faintly of mildew and rot. Emily stepped out, clutching her camera bag. She was a journalist and paranormal investigator, known for uncovering forgotten legends. This time, though, her assignment was personal. Her great-grandmother, Mary Carter, had died here in 1942, one of thousands who never left the tuberculosis ward alive. As Emily pushed through the rusted gate, a gust of cold wind whispered through the trees, carrying faint echoes, coughs, cries, and the creak of hospital gurneys. She froze, heart hammering. "It's just the wind," she told herself, though the sound seemed too human to dismiss. Inside, the corridors stretched endlessly. Her flashlight beam swept across peeling paint, rusted bed frames, and faded murals of smiling nurses. The deeper she went, the colder it grew. Her breath turned visible. Emily reached the infamous death tunnel, a long, sloping passageway once used to secretly transport bodies to the morgue, so patients wouldn't lose hope seeing how many died each day. Standing at the top of the tunnel, she felt something brush past her leg, icy, invisible. Her camera flickered on by itself and snapped a photo. The flash revealed something for just an instant. A pale figure in a nurse's uniform stood halfway down the tunnel, head bowed, hands dripping dark stains. Emily's flashlight sputtered. When it came back on, the corridor was empty, but on the wall beside her, written in a trembling hand, were words she couldn't explain. "You shouldn't have come back, Mary." Emily's breath caught. The air thickened around her, and the faint smell of antiseptic and blood filled her nose. The door behind her slammed shut with a violent echo. She was no longer alone in Waverly Hills.
Emily's flashlight beam trembled as she turned back toward the corridor. The words on the wall, "You shouldn't have come back, Mary," seemed to pulse in the dim light as if freshly written. She touched them hesitantly. The letters were sticky. Blood, real blood. A shiver ran through her spine. Her great-grandmother's name had been Mary Carter. Could it be a coincidence? She forced herself deeper into the hallway, past rusted hospital beds and shattered glass. Somewhere above her, the wind moaned through broken windows, sounding eerily like someone crying. Then she heard another sound. Soft footsteps, deliberate, echoing down the corridor ahead of her. "Hello?" she called out, her voice shaking. "Is anyone there?" The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then, out of the shadows, a figure stepped forward. A woman dressed in an old-fashioned nurse's uniform. White dress, white cap. But her face was ghastly pale, her eyes two black hollows. She held a metal tray in her hands, and on it lay surgical tools, caked with dried, dark residue. Emily froze, paralyzed between fear and fascination. The nurse tilted her head, as if studying her. When she finally spoke, her voice was a hoarse whisper that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "You shouldn't disturb the patients," she said. Emily stumbled back, her camera clicking wildly. The nurse began walking toward her, slow, gliding steps that didn't match the sound of her shoes echoing on the floor. "Please," she stammered, "I'm just here to document." The nurse screamed. a shrill, piercing cry that shattered the silence and sent dust falling from the ceiling. Lights flickered, doors slammed one by one down the hall like a chain reaction of anger. Emily turned and ran, her footsteps pounding against the tile floor. She could still hear the nurse's voice chasing her. They died in pain, and they still remember. She reached a stairwell and ducked inside, gasping for breath. The temperature dropped so sharply that her fingers went numb. When she lifted her flashlight again, she saw handprints smeared along the wall, bloody, desperate. And then she saw it on the landing above her. The nurse stood again, head tilted, a faint smile on her bloodless lips. "Welcome back, Mary." Emily's scream echoed through Waverly Hills, swallowed by the empty halls of the dead.
Emily ran through the stairwell until she burst out onto the lower floor, her lungs burning. The air here was thick, damp, cold, and heavy with decay. She knew where she was now. Beneath her feet stretched the infamous death tunnel, the passageway where the dying had been carried out of the hospital to waiting hearses below. Every instinct told her to leave, but something deeper, a strange, irresistible pull, urged her forward. Her great-grandmother's name, the nurse's haunting words. She needed to know the truth. The tunnel entrance gaped before her like the mouth of a tomb. Rusted rails still lined the sloping floor, and the smell of old death hung thick in the air. Emily switched on her camera, whispering to herself, "Document everything." As she descended, the beam of her flashlight caught strange markings on the walls, scratch marks, hundreds of them, as though countless hands had clawed to escape. Her footsteps echoed hollowly, joined by faint, rhythmic thuds. Thump, 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 like a heartbeat deep within the walls. Halfway down, the air grew freezing. A faint mist curled around her legs. Then she heard them. Whispers. At first, soft and distant, then rising in number, overlapping voices. Men, women, children, all coughing, crying, pleading. "Please, it hurts. Don't send me there. Mother, help!" Emily clutched her recorder. "Who's there?" she demanded. The whispers stopped. Then a voice, low, hoarse, unmistakably male, answered from the darkness ahead. "You've brought her back." Her flashlight flickered, then died completely. The tunnel plunged into darkness. Something cold brushed against her arm, fingers curling tight. Emily screamed and dropped her camera. When the light flickered back on, she saw them. Shapes. Dozens of translucent figures emerging from the walls. Their faces were sunken, hollow, eyes black pits. Tuberculosis patients, their bodies twisted in agony, their mouths opening and closing soundlessly. At the end of the tunnel stood the nurse in white, holding a lantern that glowed faintly blue. The dead remember kindness, but they never forget pain. Emily stumbled backward as the patients began to move toward her, arms reaching, voices rising in a chorus of despair. She turned and ran, up the slope. But the echo of the dead followed her, calling her name. Mary, Mary. Emily burst through a doorway and slammed it shut behind her, chest heaving. The whispers from the tunnel faded into silence. She leaned against the wall, trying to steady her shaking hands. Her camera was cracked, but still recording. The timestamp flickered, 3:03 a.m. When she looked around, she realized where she'd ended up, the 5th floor, the most haunted level of Waverly Hills. This was where the staff quarters and the infamous room 502 were located. According to legend, a nurse had hung herself there after discovering she was pregnant and infected. Emily's flashlight illuminated a long hallway lined with empty rooms. Doors swung gently on their hinges, though no wind blew. The air smelled faintly of iron and disinfectant. Every creak of the floorboards made her flinch. She whispered into her recorder, "This is the 5th floor. They say patients saw things here, heard children laughing. Some jumped to their deaths from the windows." A faint giggle echoed from down the hall. Then a soft, rhythmic tapping, like fingers on glass. Emily followed the sound, drawn toward a door with the faded number 502 carved above it. The door creaked open on its own. Inside, the room was sparse. A rusted bed frame, a broken chair, and a rope hanging from a ceiling beam, swaying slightly as if moved by an unseen hand. The temperature dropped instantly. Emily could see her breath again. A nurse's uniform lay crumpled on the floor, stained dark. On the wall, written in jagged letters, was a message. She died for the patients, but they never forgave her. Emily's heart pounded. She raised her camera, but before she could click, the rope jerked violently and began to twist. A shadow formed beneath it, slowly taking shape. The nurse in white appeared again, her face pale and bruised, eyes glistening with tears. "She made me do it," she whispered. They made us all do it." "Who?" Emily asked, voice trembling. The nurse pointed a trembling hand toward the far wall, where a door had not been there before. It stood slightly open, darkness spilling through the gap. "They never cured death, they only fed it," the nurse said softly. The rope snapped above her, the nurse vanished, and from behind the new door came a sound. A deep, wet cough, followed by a whisper that chilled Emily's blood. "Welcome home, Mary."
Emily hesitated at the strange door on the 5th floor. Cold air leaked from the crack, carrying the faint odor of decay and medicine. The whisper, "Welcome home, Mary," still echoed in her head. Every instinct screamed at her to leave, but something stronger, some unseen force, compelled her to turn the knob. The door creaked open to reveal a hidden ward untouched by time. Dust floated like ghostly snowflakes in the beam of her flashlight. Rows of hospital beds stretched into darkness, each still occupied. Under the thin, moldy sheets, shapes moved, slow, shallow breaths, as though the patients had never died. Emily stepped closer to one bed and gently pulled back the sheet. What she saw made her blood run cold. A skeletal figure lay there, eyes open but cloudy, lips trembling as if trying to speak. When she leaned closer, it exhaled one word: "Mary." She stumbled back, dropping her light. Panic surged through her as the other beds began to stir. All around her, the dead were waking, hollow eyes turning toward her, chests rising and falling with unnatural life. From the far end of the ward, a figure began to emerge. A man in a blood-stained doctor's coat, face obscured by a cracked surgical mask. His name tag read Dr. Richard Albright, the infamous head physician rumored to have performed horrific treatments on the TB patients. "You returned, just like she promised," he rasped. "I'm not Mary. I'm her great-granddaughter." Dr. Albright tilted his head. "Blood remembers. The disease remembers. You can't escape what began here." He reached out a gloved hand, and Emily felt the air tightened around her. Her chest burned. She began to cough violently, deep, painful coughs that shook her to her core. Blood splattered her sleeve. The spirits surrounded her now, whispering, "Stay with us, stay forever." Through the haze, the nurse in white appeared one last time. Her eyes were kind now, sorrowful. "You can free them, but you must end what your bloodline began." Emily raised her camera, hands trembling, and snapped a single photo. The flash exploded through the ward, white light consuming everything. When it faded, she was alone. The hospital was silent again. Days later, her camera was found outside the gates of Waverly Hills. The last image showed a long corridor, and standing in it, a woman in modern clothes with Emily's face, wearing a nurse's uniform.